Hey, everybody, this is Scoots answering questions for Question Corner. If you have a question, you can post it on our free Patreon post. It's the best place to get it, or that's the main place I've been checking for answers. You could also post it on YouTube. I'll try to check the YouTube comments, and I'll try to check them on social media and stuff. And I've got a bunch of questions that came in yesterday. I'm going to try to answer this one from James. James said, always remember your outstanding pitch that sold me into supporting the Patreon. Be a rebel and pay for a free podcast. And then I went from monthly to annual subscription, never looked back. And James also liked the last 3 Posty Super Deluxe episodes. Those come out on Saturdays. They're a little bit different version of the podcast, kind of experimental with music and sound effects and stuff. Those come out for patrons on the weekend. But James's question was this. How much of a regular episode is improvised during recording? Do you start with an outline and wing it? So I'm going to try to answer this. There's another similar question too. So this may be a multi-part answer. And it's one I always forget that it's a lot of people's first time hearing this. Because I've been making the show for so long. And there are people, listeners that have been with the show for almost the whole history of the show, or at least since the Patreon, that I interact with and ask a lot of questions. So sometimes I forget, like, oh, I've answered their question, but not you, people like James's question. So the first thing to know is that the free and easy sound that you hear as a result of listening to Sleep With Me is a result of a lot of work and also the history of the podcast and all the work I've and other people have put into the show over the years and learning and refining stuff. Just off the top of I was like, how much work? This doesn't even include the distribution of the show and the infrastructure to distribute the show freely, or the work Patreon puts in, because so like PRX to distribute the show for free, they also have people working to try to have the infrastructure to distribute the show and pay for all that infrastructure. And the same goes for Patreon and the way they distribute our bonus content. But yeah, it is like to put out 2 episodes a week. It's at least 100 hours of work that goes into the show. Probably 120, and that doesn't account the work that I don't necessarily do. There's like I'm trying to look at the production work. There's like about 40 hours of work just to do the business end of the podcast and like run the business that allows us to make the podcast. Then we have Russell, who works about 20 hours a week, and actually I'm trying to invest in Russell and Tatiana that work on the show, doing different roles. Right now, like I'm working on hopefully bringing in more patrons so that we can invest in, and I'm definitely not, like, I'm working on as many creative ways because I'm not looking to cut back on the hours of the people that work on the show. So Russell right now works on the show about 20 hours a week, and mostly like post-production and pre-production stuff too. Russell does a bunch of different stuff. Social media. Tatiana works on community and social media about 10 hours a week. And both of their hours, I'm trying to increase the hours that they paid hours. Then the editors work on the show. It's probably 10 hours a week. Some weeks it could be a lot more, or sometimes it can be a lot less. It's also, as I'll kind of explain in how we make the show, all this stuff is happening like it's very similar. The best analogy is like airplane travel, because and then landing the airplanes, but like there's different planes everywhere of Sleep With Me, like the episodes, like I mean, to be honest, yeah, there's 10, 20, 25. There's 25 episodes that have been recorded somewhere out there flying around in different places. And I guess I went off topic already, but those are all flying in the air. Then there's like a few episodes that are coming in for a landing. And then there's episodes in pre-production, which are like haven't left the ground yet, haven't been recorded. So probably, and then there's bonus episodes flying around. So at any given time, there's probably at least 30 to 32. Okay, this is part 2 of a video I was filming yesterday, and anyway, got interrupted. I think I was saying at any given time, there's like 30 plus episodes at different stages of pre-production, production, post-production. Why was I explaining that? So there's basically short version. There's a lot of different stages of the podcast and work that goes into the podcast that isn't apparent. And why would it be apparent to anybody, right? But it's all that work that creates Sleep With Me. And that work has evolved over the years and been able to spread it out over other people, where at first it was kind of fueled by unhealthy work and my day job and all that stuff. But it's still I'm still trying to strike a balance. But so that goes to this question of like, how much of an episode is improvised during recording? And there's not really one answer for that, except for a long-winded answer, because it depends. And there's actually like, let's see, where should we go with this? I mean, there's two things I could talk about. Is like how we record the show, how I prepare the shows, the styles of the episodes. Let me write this down then. Okay, there's like recording styles. What was the other stuff I was going to say? There's a couple other things I thought of and I already forgot. Writing. I don't know. Okay, styles. I mean, some of this might help is like the recording and the styles of the shows. So the shows are not recorded as one thing, and they're not. I think it's easy to think that I just sit down and record the shows and they come out. And I guess that was that whole whatever 20 minutes I just took. I could have explained it like that. Like, I don't just sit down and record the episodes and put them out. There's a lot of stages of making it so it sounds like that, ideally, which makes it hard, I think, for a casual listener to be like, what do you mean? Because this was probably like 8 or 9 years ago. I put out, how many hours do you think it takes to make an episode of Sleep With Me? And I think it was like, and this is when I was funding the show with my day job, and it was like 5 hours or whatever. But that's my own issues anyway. It doesn't matter. As someone wise once told me, your job's to listen to the podcast. My job's to make it. Okay, recording. Oh, so the episodes are not recorded in one take. There's 3 different parts of the shows when we record them, or for the public releases, 5 or 6 or 7 or 8. But there's the thank yous, the episode proper, and the intro. And because of the amount of exertion it takes to be in the moment and record the episodes, many, many years ago, I stopped recording shows in one day, because it really takes a lot of mental energy that doesn't leave a lot left for me to do other stuff. Recording the shows uses up glucose or whatever in my brain. But so, I mean, it used to be when I would come home from my day job, maybe eat dinner, and then record a show, then edit anyway. But that was a long, long time ago. So nowadays, like, today's a perfect example. Just like probably like 15 minutes ago, I recorded a promotion for Helix for the ad-supported show, and an intro for episode that I had already recorded last week, the thank yous and the episode for a Great British Bake Off episode. And then those will be put in a full, then there's other stages, but maybe that can people can ask questions about that. I mean, that episode will not come out. I don't even know if it'll come out this year. If it does, it'll come out late this year, because it's a Great British Bake Off, the 9th episode of the season, and those haven't even started airing yet. So yeah, so that's one thing, is like the shows aren't recorded in the same day, but that exertion thing is actually kind of goes, freedom of structure. That's kind of like the improv question. So we'll do that, and then maybe in another video I'll talk about the styles of shows, which will also help enlighten kind of which episodes are written, which episodes are researched, and which episodes are kind of improvised, kind of. The intro kind of shows the idea of the freedom of structure, which translates to a lot of the other episodes depending on, and having more, the whole thing I've learned is like having more material than you'll ever need for an episode. So the freedom of structure kind of means like the intros are not written, but the free-flowing style of the intro, one, comes from making 1,600 intros, two, learning to just do an intro, like have an intro. I mean, it's not the only work I do during the day, obviously, but it's like that's the only recording I'll do, is like an intro and then some other stuff, because the intro, I have to be really present and open-minded or whatever. But the structure of the intro, the fact that the intro follows a structure every single time, but the structure is very malleable, that's what gives me the freedom to kind of explore the tangents I can go on. Because I know if there isn't, like, I know I could always just follow the structure all the way through, and maybe it would only take, I don't know, if I did an efficient intro, it'd still probably take me 7 or 8 minutes. But that during that 7 or 8 minutes, there's almost always going to be something coming up. And the intro gives me the confidence to just wait out till something good comes up in my brain, and then go on let myself go on a tangent about it. So it's like the constraints of, like, the other constraints are ideally the intro's over 12 minutes, but less than 20 minutes. But that also means that that's the end result intro. So it's like, okay, something between like 15 minutes in recording time and 23 minutes in recording time, because some of it'll be edited out. Because again, you're not hearing me pause, clear my throat. If I have restart stuff, do restating. We don't ever edit for like what we do, like the show is not intensely edited like some narrative shows, where we're the show isn't edited, and I don't mean this in a negative way, a precious way. It's edited for content and it's edited for sound. So it's like if I do a retake, that the editor edits that out. If there's a long pause or I clear my throat, the editor edits that out. Or and I've worked with Carl and Chris long enough that, I mean, I just got a note from Chris and he was like, hey, I know you did this take, but you didn't leave enough space. So I tried to do this with your retake. So the improvisation, I guess, in there is the idea that the intro has a very strict structure. I could always follow the structure to the very end, but by having that structure, it gives me the freedom to kind of meander. And that kind of goes for, what do we get? Let's just keep going. So yeah, there's like, I refer to only 3 styles of the shows. And this kind of came up in some of the other questions of like, hey, I prefer these styles of shows. I don't like these styles of shows. And a long time ago, actually, and probably why the podcast ended up working out, and it was like, what do you call that? Like synchronicity or something, is that I learned that I couldn't write every episode, because when I first started making the show, I was writing every episode. And I was writing 3 different fictional stories on my train on the way to and from work, and then going home and recording those. And then I realized I couldn't do that. So then I switched to just sticking with 1 serialized story versus 3 serialized stories. and let's just go and get through this one serialized story. Then I realized like even that was like that well can only hold so much water on a weekly basis. And so that's when I started doing TV recap episodes, because that's a different well, a well of creativity or mental, whatever effort, different type of exertion. So there's TV recap episodes. Those TV recap episodes are based on me watching the show over and over again. One time I'll watch it just a, for fun or breezy watch. And then I'll watch it over and over again and take notes. And depending on the style of show, like I may have to watch it more times or less times, the episodes. And that's why I choose the shows I do. And we're not really able to take, there's just so much forward planning and so much work that's kind of hard to explain, but it's like, that's why I kind of choose the shows I do, because I have to watch them. So I have to have a good relationship with the show, and it has to stay good, because I have to put in all the work. But so those shows are just a much different type of exertion. But when I sit down to record them, I have ideally more material than I could ever possibly fit in the episode, which again is like another type of freedom of structure. It gives me the freedom to say, okay, like I can just take it easy and be in the moment and kind of go off these notes and go off what we have and go from there. And so those are the TV recap episodes. Then there's written episodes, which were the first style of episode of Sleep With Me we ever made, which I write. And right now we have like about a 10-day writing window. So I think I'm on day 2 or 3 of writing an episode of the next series that's going to come out. And this one is, I'm writing it all in order just because the ending is necessary. It's not it's a different than the last series we did. It's not as it's slightly more serialized, but still episodically modular. But yeah, I write those episodes. I don't script the episodes though. I'm writing them, and I'm writing dialogue, and I'm writing the plot, and then I'm going back and I'm rewriting, and then I'm kind of going back and Xing stuff out. So you might call it soft scripted. It's not anything that would ever be usable by anybody else. It's all my own kind of shorthand. And then I work off of that. And again, it's freedom of structure and having the material. I found like some episodes that I've had so much material that then it either becomes 1.5 episodes, or it's like, okay, I could use that in the next episode, or the episode takes the characters. I don't know. Ideally, the characters are like my relationship with the characters is strong enough, or the character, that it can take its own journey too. And then the episode goes in a different direction. And then or it's like, okay, something's not working. But again, that's all like effort in and effort out, like, and freedom of structure and freedom of work. It's like all the work I've prepared gives me the freedom to stay loose. And then those two type of things, and again, it's hard to explain, but those two things feed all the other things, like in the freedom of the intros. For the third style show, which we call Trending Tuesday episodes, because that was the third type of show I discovered how to make, was like, okay, I only have so much time to watch TV recaps, and I only have so much time to write. And I'm not so I needed to, accidentally, I didn't know I needed this, but I found a third type of exertion, which is somewhat improvised within a structure episodes, which became Trending Tuesdays, because originally I would look up the trends on Twitter and I would use that as my meander points, what I call them, or store. Like, so if I had like 15 trends from Twitter, this was back in 2014. So it was different, where I wouldn't have to, like, now I can't do that because I don't have time to research everything to see back then it was like Tamer on there. So it's just like a famous basketball player who scored a lot of points, or everybody's favorite team, or something else. Like, so I could easily use those and try to build a story based on story structure that I know from writing the episodes, but making up a story somewhat on the spot, But every time the story petered out, then I could just try to use the next trend as a story beat, and like, so to just stay in the moment and let this kind of story unfold, but knowing, it, I don't know, if I get too lost in the woods, to be like, okay, well, why is Rock Lobster on there? Oh, and then I could say Rock Lobster. Like, is that like the song Rock Lobster? Is there like, do lobsters live, or do they look like rocks? And then kind of like, but then let the story, again, the same kind of looseness I guess I'm talking about. And then, but that's also then Trending Tuesdays kind of became more than that, because one, there's no place you can find trends anymore. That again we don't have the budget or the time to have somebody pre-build trends and research them. So it's like I found new ways of randomizing stuff. But then also we've kind of done like, so Trending Tuesday now means potpourri. So it could be a improv episode. A lot of times the improv episodes come out of the looseness of an intro, where I thought I was recording an intro about something, and you'll hear that in intros, be like, oh, maybe I should make an episode about it. I don't always make an episode about it, because it depends on how packed the recording schedule is with other stuff that has to get recorded. Like that this week, that happened twice, but I was like, yeah, I have no openings in the recording schedule right now. So like, I'm not going to remember it in 2 weeks. Like, it won't be as fresh. But other times it'll be like, all right, tomorrow I'll just record that episode based on that tangent that came up in the intro. Personal essays, tale of the tape. Like, so all the Trending Tuesday ones are like other ways to exert myself that aren't writing, and well, sometimes they're research, but they're not a type of research like rewatching. They're like another kind of research, or like crossover episodes. So it kind of has become more of a potpourri thing. And that kind of worked out for listeners too, because then it was like, okay, it also fit listener tastes, right? Like, so I have to alternate between those episodes, because I don't have the resources to make one of the same episode every time. And I wouldn't be able to, like, I would have quit the show. Like, if I only did TV recaps, I would have stopped making the podcast. If I only did Trending Tuesdays, or written episodes, I just would have, it's like, it would have got old, I think. Where this way, there's like all these different types of exertion. So those parts of me aren't exhausted. They're just like challenged. So it's always a challenge, but it's a challenge of 3 different types of exertion and creation for me. And then, but it ends up that as the show developed the audience has their own tastes, and their tastes can be very specific. Not everybody, but yeah. So some people, they're like, I don't listen to TV recap episodes. I don't like Ray, or I don't like this style of show. I mean, the hard thing is if people have preconceived notions about it, which can be a challenge. But for the most part, it's like, okay, that's great, because we alternate every episode. We do a trending, I mean, because we used to do 3 episodes a week, but we cut back because it wasn't possible to keep that up. But like, I still internally call them Tuesday style episodes, Thursday style episodes, and Sunday style episodes. Tuesday is Trending Tuesday or potpourri style episodes. Thursday are written episodes, and Sundays are TV recap episodes. But those get alternated, so either they come out on Wednesday or Sunday. So like, I don't know. Oh, tonight's Make Great Pets when I'm recording this. So that's a Thursday style episode written. Then there'll be the last Mandalorian episode, probably. I don't know. The summer's a little bit different because we're trying to manage the podcast. And then there'll be a Tuesday style episode, or unboxing. I think that's one of the next ones coming out. Like, there's another style, or Fearless Flyers, or recipe episodes, or Ray. So that worked out, because it's like, oh, don't worry. You always, if that episode doesn't work for you, the next episode will be something different. And I never had to message that. I mean, the only hard thing is preconceived notions. Like, people have they see a title, and then the episodes will underperform, or like for some reason, Star Trek TNG, those episodes are underperform. But the thing is that the shows that people feel the strongest negatively about are the ones that people feel the strongest positively about. And so I kind of try to keep things in the middle, but also keep that in mind. I'm not going to stop making Star Trek The Next Generation episodes because I know that's on some people's high, strong, positive, even though that show's not on a lot of strong people's negatives. It's just people have a preconceived notion, so they just avoid those episodes. Doctor Who is a little bit like that too, but lesser of effect, which is surprising to me, but it is. Or Ray's probably a good example of the extreme. Like, there are people, I mean, we did a test on Patreon when the show's budget, when Patreon was a little bit bigger and we had a bigger budget. We had a budget to make 12. There was the year during the pandemic where we had a budget and I was like, I can make a Ray episode a month. Like, we can afford to do that. And there was people, that became $20 patrons. That's how powerful Ray's fandom is. But at the same time, yeah, there's some people that just won't ever listen to Ray episodes, or Ray's just not their thing. Or on Saturdays on Patreon, we put out special edition episodes. We put them out at noon. And that tends to fall, for most people, they fall in the middle, but there's people that just strongly dislike them because Posey introduces them, or because there's ambient audio or there's music. But then there's people that strongly love them. And for me, it's like, okay, they come out on Saturday at noon. And the idea is like to give, I mean, the original concept was, I just thought Chris was a really talented guy. And it was a way to pay him a little bit extra money and have some creative expression. But it's also like, I don't have the time or resources to do anything extra with Sleep With Me. So what would it be like, even with a small budget, like in a very tiny situation, Chris have some creative freedom to just do whatever he wants with the episodes, which is exactly what he has. So I think that's it for right now, but people can always ask me follow-up questions too. Thanks.